Has anyone here ever been scammed? Yes? Oh my gosh. Tell me about your scam. Do you want to tell me about your scam? Oh no. Did you get them off Marketplace or something? Yeah, classic. Don't buy iPhones or AirPods off Marketplace. Guys, I would like to say that I very much pride myself on being a person that is good at detecting scams. Right? I get those text messages, I get those emails, and I'm like, no, I know that you are a scam. But I did find myself in a little situation last year. I had a friend that I really wanted to buy a nice present for, and so I thought I would get this friend an hoodie, right? That's such a great gift. I'm going to get this friend an hoodie. And lucky me, I saw an Instagram ad, and they were doing an end of financial year sale, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And so I go onto the website, I order myself an hoodie. It's $45 because end of financial year sale, amazing. So I get this hoodie, and then I get the email with my confirmation, and I'm like, okay, fabulous. And then now it's been a few days, and I'm like, okay, has it been sent out? What's going on? And then it's a few more days, and I'm like, this thing is not on its way. And so then I go onto the hoodie website, and I'm like, okay, their sale's not on anymore. That's so weird. And then I go down to the customer service bit, and I look at the email, and I'm like, that's funny. That's a different email to the email that was sent to me before. So I go back into my email that's the confirmation of my order. And then I click the link back into that website, and I realize that I'm looking at two different websites. I'm looking at the Oodie Sleepwear, oodieaustralia.au, right, is the fake one that I bought off, and the real website is oodie.com. And so I was like, okay, come on. They literally made their website look so identical to the real thing, even down to the logo. It was so ridiculous. And so I was like, I demand a refund. Please give me my money back. They did not give me my money back. And then I had to buy a real hoodie. So that was quite sad. But I was just shocked at how much they were able to make the websites look exactly the same. I had to do so much digging in order to realize that actually this thing is not the real deal. And so, yeah, sometimes things can look really good at face value, but then you look a little bit closer and you realize that actually this is not the real deal. And I actually think that sometimes it's the same way with the messages that the world is trying to tell us. I actually think that sometimes the messages that the world tries to tell us, they can look really good. They can look like the real deal. They can seem really positive. They can seem like they might even be biblical. But when you look closer, you realize that actually there's not that much truth in this. And so that's kind of what we're going to be exploring tonight. See, Paul, who wrote most of the letters of the New Testament, he actually warns the church about this. He writes in Colossians 2, verse 8, he says, "Don't let anyone capture you with empty philosophies and high-sounding nonsense that come from human thinking and from the spiritual powers of this world, rather than from Christ." He says, don't let anyone capture you. And what he's actually saying here is that it's on us, it's on you and me, to make sure that we don't fall into the trap of believing things that we shouldn't. We actually have to take responsibility for that. It's up to us to be able to hear something and not just take it at face value, but actually question it, right? It's up to us to be able to hear things like song lyrics, movies, TikToks, Reels. It's up to us to be able to look at that stuff and think, okay, what is this actually trying to tell me? What is this trying to tell me about myself? What is this trying to tell me about God? What does this actually mean? And so tonight we're actually going to get really practical, and we're pretty much just going to be doing that together. We're going to be exploring a certain message that the world has really been pushing. We're going to see what the world has to say, and then we're going to see what God has to say. And so the message, or kind of the ideology that we're going to be looking at tonight, is a phrase that you've probably heard used a million times. And it's this phrase, I am enough. I am enough, or you are enough. Right? It's a message that is in a lot of the media that we consume. It's all over Pinterest, it's in podcasts, it's hidden in song lyrics. And when you first hear it, it seems fine, right? It seems positive, it seems uplifting, It seems like it might even be biblical. It's something that like you might hear kind of in church sometimes, that you are enough. At face value, it sounds good. But I really believe that there's actually a much bigger conversation to be had about the way that this phrase affects the way that we're thinking about ourselves and the way that we're thinking about God. And for me, this phrase has always been kind of off-putting, right? Like I've always been a little skeptical of it, and so I was really, really excited to be preaching this message for you guys tonight. And as I kind of dug into it this week, you know, doing some research and having conversations with other people, what I really quickly realized is that this message of like, you are enough just the way you are, you're perfect and you don't need to change, it's really rooted in like the self-love, self-acceptance movement. And it's really, really pushed towards girls. It's pushed towards girls a lot more than it's pushed towards guys. And what I realized is that actually the experience that guys have with this phrase, you are enough, is really quite opposite to the experience that girls have. And so what I kind of mean by this is that often the message that girls are being told is that you are enough just the way you are, that you don't need to change. But often the message that is being pushed towards guys in things like TikToks or song lyrics or podcasts, often the message being pushed towards guys is that actually you need to work in order to become enough. You need to make yourself enough. And so what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time looking at this kind of messaging that's being pushed towards girls and then this kind of messaging that's being pushed towards guys. And I know that sometimes it can be really easy to be like, okay, well, she's talking to the girls now, so I can just like tune out and like, you know, the other way around. But the reason that this message is being preached to all of you and not just being written as two separate things to be preached at like a guy-girl split is because we really want to be a youth ministry that is so good at encouraging one another. And so it's so important that for the guys in the room, you're actually listening and paying attention when I'm talking about the girls, right? Because one day you're going to have a girlfriend, you're going to have a wife, you might have sisters, right? And so you actually need to know, okay, what is the messaging that's being pushed towards girls? Because you're going to be the one that is actually pointing them back to the truth. You're going to be the one that actually is reminding them, hey, your value is in Christ. And for the girls in the room, you need to know how you can encourage your guy friends, your boyfriend, your husband one day. Because you need to be able to say, hey, I know what the world is trying to tell you, and I want to remind you that your value isn't in what you do, that your value is in God. And so my ask for all of us is that we would just all of us, really lean in to both of these sections that we're going to go through. So, for the girlies, I was doing a little bit of a deep dive on Pinterest this week in preparation because I really want you guys to be able to like actually visualize what it is that I'm talking about. And so I was searching on Pinterest under the phrase, you are enough, and I was just like looking at the quotes that were coming up, and I kept scrolling, and I kind of put together a bit of a collage, if you will, of some of the different things that I was coming across. Now I'm going to read them to you because I don't know how well you're able to actually read that from where you are. So starting in the top left, we have, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am divine. Everything comes to me in the perfect time. The universe and me are aligned. I love that one rhymes. Like, props to them. I manifest everything I desire. I'm so lucky. Everything works out for me. I radiate positive and loving energy. I don't chase, I attract. What belongs to me will simply find me. My thoughts become my reality. Everything is possible for me. I am enough just as I am. You are enough. I am powerful, I am strong. I am beautiful, I am enough. I accept and love myself unconditionally. All I can do is all I can do, and that is enough. I accept myself as I am. I am capable of the extraordinary. Be enough for yourself first. The rest of the world can wait. Sorry. I am radiant, vibrant, and magnetic. All right, now, obviously we've got a lot going on here, and I just kind of want to point out that, like, obviously when I'm searching, the stuff that's kind of in the center is like what's coming up first, right? The stuff of like, you are enough. And then the more and more you kind of go on, the more that you look at like what quotes are linked to those quotes and what quotes are linked to those quotes, the more kind of weirder it gets as you go on. All right, now, I just want to identify for us some of the lies that are being pushed within this kind of messaging, right? So some of the lies that like we can see straight away is you don't need to change anything about yourself, right? We're being told that I accept myself just as I am, therefore I don't need to change anything about myself. Completely contradictory to the gospel, right? We're being told that you don't need anything or anyone else, right? We're being told that I'm the one who's powerful, that I'm the one who's in control. We're being told that your worth is actually in you, that you can be enough for yourself. And then what we're also seeing here is that the quotes that if we could just go back to the slide of the quotes, please. What we're also seeing here is that the further we get into this kind of self-love, self-acceptance movement, the more we start going into some really interesting new age spirituality messages. Now, I know that that's a big word, and that's maybe a word that you've heard before but don't really know what it means. And so I do have a little definition for us. I think it's the next 2 slides over. But basically, thank you, New Age spirituality is an ideology where it's made up of lots of different things from different worldviews, different religions, and you get to choose what it is that you believe. So I can pick and take a little bit from this, and I can pick and take a little bit from this, and from this, and from this. And it's up to you. You get to be the one to decide. And this kind of ideology, this kind of spirituality, it often includes belief in stuff like manifesting, belief in astrology, belief in reincarnation. What else is on there? Belief in spiritual energy. And so if we go back to the quotes, what we can see is that we slowly do start to see some of this stuff when we look into this self-love movement, right? Stuff like manifesting is so linked closely together with both. Stuff like you're the one who's divine and in control and you radiate positive energy is so linked to both, to the self-love movement and to New Age spirituality. And so there's so many more lies that we can then identify because of all of this kind of messaging, right? Lies like you are the one who's in control. Lies like you are powerful. Lies like you can make things happen. Now, the point is, right, if I'm the one who's powerful and I'm the one who's strong, then what do I need God for? Right? If I'm enough just the way I am, then why do I need a savior? And so we can see where things kind of start to unravel. Right? These things are lies because they go against what God tells us. These positive self-love phrases are actually changing the way that we think about ourselves, and they're changing the way that we think about God. Okay, we're going to kind of leave that there for now. We're going to talk about the guys, about what kind of messaging is being pushed towards them. And like I said before, this kind of I am enough phrase is something that is really targeted towards girls. And so, guys aren't really getting these pretty pink Pinterest quotes thrown at them, right? That's not the messaging that they're receiving. There's actually it honestly shocked me. There is such a massive difference in the type of motivational content that's targeted towards guys compared to the content that is targeted towards girls. And we do see it a lot in song lyrics, but we also see it so much on Reels and on TikTok. We see it especially in clips of podcasts, because apparently anyone can have a podcast now and they go viral all the time. And so when I was doing some searching for motivational videos targeted towards guys on TikTok, as I said, I was shocked at how opposite it was to the content that's pushed towards girls. And so what I've done is I have 3 videos that I've just cut down and edited together that I want to play for you guys. And what I want us to pay attention to is how opposite it is to what we're seeing here. So we're going to watch those videos together now.
You have to build yourself into an empire. You want an empire? You have to build yourself into an empire. You want an empire? Build yourself, focus on yourself, because it's the only thing you can truly, truly control.
You're tired? Great, get to work. You're heartbroken? Great, get to work. Because if you can show up to work every single day despite of what you're going through, you're going to develop an unstoppable version of yourself. So when real hard times come, not just people's opinions, but real hard times, you will not only be ready for it, but you will dominate those hard times. You'll make it look easy.
What do you say to young men who come to you for advice, who feel lost, who don't really know where they fit into society?
I say that life as a man is exceptionally difficult. I say the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing about being a man is you're born without value. Society doesn't care about you. You're only going to be cared about based on how useful you are. You have the chance to build yourself up and become a superhero if you're prepared to do the hard work and be indefatigable enough to never quit. But if you're going to stand around and wait for a handout, nobody's going to ever respect you.
You have to build yourself into an empire. You want an empire?
Alrighty. Can we see the difference, right? So what we have there is we have some guy on a podcast saying that men need to build themselves their own empire. We have someone saying that, no matter what you're going through, you need to work super, super hard to be the best version of yourself. And then we have Mr. Andrew Tate saying that, men, he actually said, I don't know if we heard it because of the reaction, but he actually said men are born without value. And so you need to go and, make something of yourself to create your own value. And so, once again, I know I laugh, but I do want to acknowledge that this stuff isn't totally false, that there's stuff in this kind of content that is truthful, right? Obviously, working hard is really important. It's also biblical to work really hard. And I just want to acknowledge that, and I want to say that I'm not trying to say that all of this kind of content is totally false or totally heretical. So that's my disclaimer. But I do want to say that obviously there are some massive, massive, massive lies that are being told within this kind of content. The first, and I think the most troubling, being that guys are born without value. That's crazy. That you're born with no value, and so therefore you need to create your own value. And it's up to you. It's on you. That your responsibility in life is to build your own empire. That your worth is in what you do. It's not in who you are, it's in your actions. And so what we have a whole generation of young men that are being raised on the belief that they need to go into the world and they need to work hard to make a name for themselves. And for some of you who do get really, caught up in this kind of belief, that is such an immense pressure to be carrying, right? To believe that you need to go and make something of yourself so that you can have value. And, maybe you're here tonight and that is how you've been feeling, right? Maybe you're feeling I'm not good enough now, but I'm going to be good enough when I get the perfect ATAR. Or I'm going to be good enough when I get to do a degree that's really well respected. I'm going to be good enough when I get a really high paying job. I'm going to be good enough when I get to enter the property market early. I'm going to be good enough when I get to be financially independent. I'm going to be good enough when I get to retire early. I'm going to be. And so there's this weight that's on you of constantly thinking that when I just get there, then I'll be good enough. And I know that sometimes we can hear stuff like this and it's kind of hard to tell whether it's something that we've just heard or whether it's something that, has really started to change the way that we think. And so I think that a good kind of marker, a good test, a question for us to be asking ourselves is, what's your motivation when it comes to your future? Right? Are you thinking more about your passions and your interests? Are you thinking about what career path is going to make you the most money? For the grade 12s in the room, some of you are going to be applying for uni this year. Are you basing your preferences off of, what you're going to enjoy? or what's going to get you a really great reputation, like what's going to make you successful, what sounds really fancy. How much has this message that, you need to create your value based on what you do and what you can achieve, how much has that kind of messaging actually affected the way that you think about your future? See, so many of us here tonight, we might have fallen into the trap of either believing that, we aren't enough as we are, that we do need to go and make a name for ourselves, that we do need to go in and prove ourselves so that we can be valuable, or we've gone the other way of accepting this message that I'm enough just as I am, that I don't need to change. And although these things are so different, it just goes to show that there are so many different ways that the world is trying to affect the way that we think about ourselves, that the world is trying to tell us who we are. The world is trying to tell us what our identity is. The world is trying to tell us how valuable we are. But I really believe that, the only person who gets to decide how valuable something is the one who made it. The only person who gets to decide how valuable something is the one who made it. See, the only person who gets to tell you your identity, how valuable you are, is the Creator who formed you. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what does God have to say on the matter, right? What does God have to say about this idea, I am enough? And I think what we see in Scripture is we see two truths. The first is that I, in myself, I am not enough. I am not enough. But luckily, the truth doesn't end there, because the second truth is that in Him, in God, I am more than enough. I am not enough. In Him, I am more than enough. Christ is in me, so I am enough. And so we're going to look at that first half. I am not enough. See, when I look at my life, what I can see is that even on my best day, even when I am feeling like I am the kindest person in the world, when I'm feeling confident, when I'm feeling fulfilled, when I'm feeling like, I'm doing really, really well, even on those great days, I'm still so limited by sin, right? Because that confidence that I have can so quickly turn into arrogance. And, that kindness can so easily turn into manipulation. And that happiness can so easily turn into anger, right? I'm so deeply flawed because of sin that even my best traits, even things that I love about myself, still have these negative sides to them. They still aren't completely perfect. And yet still, even though I know all of that, even though I know how flawed I am, I spend so much time trying to do life on my own. Even though it never works out, there's this sin in me that refuses to admit that I can't do it by myself, that refuses to admit that actually I do need God. And I think there's so many of us who really want to be the one who's in charge of our life because we think that all we need is ourselves. Brittany Rust, she says this. She says, when you attempt to tackle life in your own strength, you're essentially saying that you don't need help, that you don't need Him, which is pride. See, the truth is that no matter how good I am, I'm still not God. I'm not in control. We can't do the things that only God can do. And so the truth is so much more complicated than this phrase, I am enough. There's just way more to it than that, right? Like this week I was reading an article by Amy Joseph. It's called Enough with I Am Enough. It was great. And she says in this that I am enough can't capture the simultaneous realities that I was created to be perfect, that I am deeply flawed because of sin, and that I'm a cherished daughter of the God of the universe because of Christ's work. You are not enough on your own. But luckily for us, the truth doesn't end there. I don't want that to be the only thing you walk away with tonight. I don't want your parents to ask you what you talked about at youth and for you to say that I learnt that I was not enough. There is more to the story than that, right? You are not enough on your own, but in Him, you are more than enough. In Him, I am more than enough. See, New Life Youth, we actually don't need to look within ourselves to be enough. You don't need to look within yourself to be enough because Christ is enough. You don't need to be enough on your own because he is. You aren't your own hero. The entire Bible is about a God who comes to rescue. You aren't enough on your own, but he is. In Luke 12, verse 6-7, Jesus says, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows." What's happening here is that Jesus is comforting his followers. He's reassuring them that God is going to take care of you, that they can trust he's going to take care of them because he takes care of all of the birds in the sky. And if God takes care of all of them, Jesus is saying that you don't need to worry because you're worth way more than all of these birds. You are worth way more. See, you don't need to create your own value because you have a value in you that is permanent because you are created by God. You have inherent value from God because you are his creation. You are his child. You mean so much to him that he knows how many hairs are on your head. And I just find so much peace in knowing that my value isn't something that changes, that my value is constant because he is a constant God. And I think the most beautiful part actually is that we're more than enough. You're actually more than enough in God. If I was eating at a restaurant, right? If I'm eating at a restaurant, I'm having a lovely meal, and the chef comes over to me and he says, "How's the meal? How's the food?" And I say, "It's enough." He would probably look at me and think, "Is that it? Is that all this is? This food that I've, put my heart and soul into, this food that I have handcrafted, all that you have to say about it is that it's enough. It's not delicious, it's not tasty, it's not amazing. It's just enough." See, I think we actually sell ourselves short by saying that, I am enough. Because in God, we're so much more than that. We're so much more than just enough. See, because of God, we're his children. Because of God, we get to be called his co-heirs. We're a royal priesthood. Because of God, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. We're loved, we're cherished, we're valued. We're so much more than just enough. But the best thing that the world has to say about us is that you're enough. That's the best compliment that the world can give. And yet in God, we get to be so much more than that. See, in God, we also get a greater purpose. Your purpose isn't just to build your own empire. Your purpose is actually to build his kingdom. It's a greater purpose. It's not about you, it's actually about him. See, God, we're told in Scripture, has good works that are planned in advance for you to do. He has a beautiful purpose for your life. He wants to use you. And you might be here tonight and you're hearing that and you're thinking okay, well, that sounds good, but that's not true for me because you don't know who I really am, right? You don't know how insecure I am. You don't know how jealous I get. You don't know the resentment that's in my heart. You don't know the mistakes I've made. You don't know the words that I've said. You don't know how weak I am. But friends, one of the most beautiful truths about God, about who he is that he uses and empowers us despite our weaknesses. In 2 Corinthians 12, we read, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me.'" See, you're not more than enough in God because of how amazing you are. You're more than enough for him to use you because he doesn't need that much, right? Sharon Miller, she says it this way. She says, "You're more than enough in the same way that 5 loaves and 2 fish were enough." God can work a miracle using absolutely anything just because that's who he is. That's how powerful he is. You're enough in the same way that tax collectors were enough. Friends, you are enough for God to use you. I hope that you know that tonight. See, the beautiful thing is that when God uses us, he's actually the one doing all the work, right? Like I said that I used to work in childcare, and we would have like these monkey bars in the playground, and these 3-year-olds want to go across the monkey bars, but they're not strong enough to. And so we're like hoisting them up so that they can go across these monkey bars. We're holding all of their weight and we're walking them across, but they're grabbing each bar one by one. We're doing all the work though. And it's the same way with God. When we step out in faith, he's the one carrying everything. He's the one giving us the words to say, the confidence. He's doing it all. See, friends, when we start to think, I'm not good enough, the solution isn't to tell ourselves that, I'm enough. The solution is to say, I'm not enough, but when I'm weak, he's strong. See, when I admit that I'm not enough, I get to run and cling to the God who is. And that's the power that I am enough fails to offer. I want to finish with this quote from Amy Joseph. She says, I reject the phrase, I am enough. Not because I don't believe that people who say it mean well, but because God's solution to the human dilemma is far better than a platitude, even if it is harder to swallow at first.